Good morning to President Wolf, to the esteemed Dean of the Faculty, Dean Boyoung Lee, to the Chair of the Board, Chairman Pfeiffer, to the celebrated faculty of Iliff, to the staff and students, and especially the graduating class of this year, and to your family and friends. I am exceedingly thankful for this singular honor of being allowed to offer the commencement address for this year. I bring you warmest greetings from Dean Gregory Sterling, the faculty, the staff, and the students of Yale Divinity School. It is a joy for me to share in this moment with you, even in virtual space. For a few moments, I draw your attention to the final verses of the book of Acts, where we find Paul frustrated and incarcerated. His frustrations are part of his ongoing conversations with his own people over what he believes God is doing in the world. There, in the heart of the Roman Empire, Paul is trying to explain to his folk the revolutionary new thing that the God of Israel has done and is doing through Jesus of Nazareth. The old order in all its manifestations, social, political, religious, economic, has been overturned and is now beginning to crumble from within. But Paul's people understand and seem to appreciate much more than Paul where they are. They are in Rome, in the heart of the old order. And no one seems to have gotten this memo about this new order created and inaugurated in Jesus, as far as Paul's people in Rome are concerned. There is no room in Rome for theological experimentation or new theopolitical projects, unless you want to end up like Paul, incarcerated. If the frustrations are old, yet expected for Paul, so too is his incarceration. He has been jailed before, a Roman citizen, yet incarcerated. This one who's traveled everywhere now cannot go anywhere. House arrest. That is the term we should use for this moment when Paul is living under constrained conditions. On the one hand, he has not yet broken through to his people, not yet convinced them that a new order is here, a new order of life together, Jew and Gentile joined together in a new political and social order. And on the other hand, he's being held captive because of a political system and a judicial system being used to silence him and destroy him. He cannot break through, and he cannot leave. I think all of us now have a keener sense of what it means to live under constrained conditions, where your hopes are pressed hard, even, let's say, incarcerated by difficult realities. And my friends, as you all know, we are in the midst of very difficult realities. Yet Paul, in the midst of his constrained condition, enacts a future for himself in which he becomes a place. He decides to open up where he is, open his story, share his journey, announce the new thing that God is doing and wants to do in the world to all who would come to him, all who would listen to him, all who would sit with him. He will, with courage and conviction, open his life. What does it mean? What does it mean to become a place? I don't mean to have a place, but to become a place. Now, it may seem odd to you for me to speak of a person as a place, but I'm referring here to a kind of becoming through which you become a place of meeting. You become a place of gathering that opens up for people new possibilities for thriving life together, especially in confined and confining spaces. These pandemic days, these Black Lives Matter days, these grotesque inequities in everything days requires a new vision of what we might become collectively and what you might become individually. As you are no doubt keenly aware of now, my friends, theological education has been haunted by a horrible vision of becoming, one rooted in the dreams of the white colonial masters as they looked out onto their colonial holdings and looked on their sons and grandsons. Those white colonial masters asked, who must my children, my sons, and even my daughters become in order to sustain and enhance this world that I own? Their answer? They must become self-sufficient men who embody possession, control, and mastery. They must become me, he said, but better. It is this sick and distorting vision of becoming that dogs the dreams of formation in Western education, and especially theological education. But we are in need at this crucial moment of a new vision of becoming. I'm reminded of the 1963 Martin Luther King Jr., not the harmless image he has become in our time, but the one who became a lightning rod of controversy by drawing diverse people together in a shared project of Black liberation, Black abolition, who from a jail cell in Birmingham, Alabama, wrote those famous words that we all know so well. And I now quote, "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again, he said, can we afford to live with the narrow provincial outsider agitator idea." King saw connection and sought to build connection. That, my friends, is what is required to become a place of meeting where new possibilities can be imagined. Now, I want to be very clear here. I need to be very clear here. To become a place of meeting is not to envision yourself in that fictive middle position between liberal and conservative. For so many of us, our social vision has collapsed down into that mindless duality, that stupefying binary of liberal or conservative. And so we are pressed to imagine that the heart of our moral work now is to get liberals and conservatives to talk respectfully to one another. My friends, that is not becoming a place of meeting. That is becoming a place of confusion. As Roland Barthes said, to imagine yourself in some middle position politically and socially is already to not know where you are or when you are. You and I are in a history of separation and segregation rooted in nation, rooted in race, rooted in gender that helps to make possible exploitation and violence even now. We are in a history of struggle. But I know that I am talking to people who understand that we are in a history of struggle. The challenge for us is to not lose ourselves inside a hermeneutic of struggle. The danger for people who are clear on the need to speak truth to power is that we lose sight that the speaking must always be inside the gathering, always inside the connecting. Everything comes down to not how you see struggle, but how you see and build connection. Again, the words of King, we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again. Let's stop right there with the never again. This pandemic has brought us into a never again moment. The Black Lives Matter movement, the Black Lives Matter moment has brought us into a never again moment. The hatred and the violence aimed at the Asian community has brought us into a never again moment. Never again has to do with overturning one way of connecting, bound by greed and exploitation, hatred and fear, and living toward another way of connecting, bound by the desire to see and build thriving life, to see it made real all around you. What is required now, my friends, is a subversive desire. A desire to become a place where people thrive. A desire that moves you and I beyond simply being those who are not impediments to people's thriving. That is such a low bar for living, to simply not being an impediment, where people are free to pursue their individual quest for thriving. That is a low bar for living, for working, for thinking and acting. And that low bar will not meet this moment. This moment requires people who wish to place their bodies as living conduits, who make their lives bridges where knowledge and ideas and resources and opportunities and hopes and dreams flow back and forth between peoples and communities that have refused connection and resisted collaboration. This moment will require people who will not only turn their resources, but their lives toward building the common, building the shared, building the joined. This moment requires people who will refuse gated communities, resist gated lives, and place their lives in the midst of others, in the midst of a distressed environment, in the midst of segregated neighborhoods, in the midst of class division, in the midst of grotesque economic inequities, and say to themselves, I will be a place that connects. I will be a place of thriving, in a place where thriving is a distant memory or not a memory at all. What is necessary for this moment is for you to root yourself in a place and decide to become the person whose very name becomes synonymous with a meeting and with a thriving together that others never thought possible, whose very name becomes synonymous with another name that gathers together. Another name that gathers hopes and dreams rooted in a life that overcame death and promises and overcoming. And my friends, every place needs that person.